So, as I said, I'm from Australia, work at the Australian Energy Market Operator. We got a number of different roles, I've put some of them up there. We are the electricity system operator in the national electricity market, which is the kind of light grey area in eastern Australia. It's about 85% of the population that lives there. We're also a system operator at the wholesale electricity market over in Western Australia, which is the light grey area over to the west. There's a few other kind of small isolated systems we're not currently involved in. And then there's a whole lot where there's not really a grid supplied electricity. There's a few other photos showing that it's a very big country when you overlay into Europe or the United States. So this is my country, beautiful. When you look at it in the bright blue sky, you sometimes get to say, well, the sky has no limits, but we know that's not the case. The photos showed fairly hot and dry place, and Australia as a whole is generally a fairly hot and dry place. And it's been that historically, with rather extreme weather. When it's not hot and dry, we can have floods. Climate change is not making that any better. And there's significant impacts on electricity supply through extreme temperatures, driving record high demand levels, affecting power stations, networks through derating, reaching too high temperatures to operate efficiently, reaching potentially high temperature cutoffs, the shutting off power stations. Hot and dry climate is great for bushfires. Bushfires may affect transmission corridors, causing lines to be de-energized to prevent tripping of the lines. It drives more intense cyclones, storms and tornadoes that can affect the electricity supply infrastructure. Extended droughts can affect the availability of cooling water for thermal plants and reduce the water available for hydropower generation. And then there's other impacts when you are looking to plan for the electricity system around industry sectors. What's happening with agriculture when there's long, prolonged droughts? Will we see a reduced output and therefore reduced consumption at the processing of the agricultural products? Or will we see an increased demand because we're using additional water for irrigation and pumping? And then we've got the additional electricity used for desalination to firm up the water supplies for the major cities. So we're working with the Australian Bureau of Meteorology to improve the understanding of climate change and the impact on Australia's energy system. I'll try to catch up a little bit on the time, so I'll skim very briefly through that. We do some integrated system plans. This is the last one we did last year. And it's showing the energy system is transforming. We all know that. It's happening in Australia as well. And interestingly enough, we've seen renewables coming down in price, as we've heard. So pretty much regardless of what scenario we're looking at, the future is renewable. What's really different is the pace of the transformation towards this renewable system and what technologies we're using for the firming. Is it going to be battery storage? Is it pumped hydro? Flexible gas power generation, or something else? Could be demand side anticipation, for instance. We're currently working on our next integrated system plan to be released next year. The draft outcomes actually to be published potentially next week. We've defined 5 scenarios here, ranging from the slopes, rate of change. The green scenario is kind of a central outlook. And if we continue up toward the 2 axes of decarbonization and decentralization, we see there's a scenario up there in the top corner that's called step change. I was about to say I'm pretty proud that I've got this scenario, which I shouldn't be, because that's actually the only scenario where we reached the Paris Agreement. But we felt we need at least one scenario that had that, and last year, or the last time we did this, we didn't have a scenario that actually It does have, I guess, a strong focus on the electricity system, but also the, I guess, interaction with other sectors on the electrification of industry, heating, and transportation included. And generally, the expectation is, based on what we had last year, that there is no silver bullet. The solution to achieve what we want to do, or to get to the Paris Agreement, includes a range of technologies at a very large scale deployment. The starting point, I'll focus mainly on the national electricity market, so that's the market in the east, which is the bigger of them. It's probably not that much you need to know. It's about 200 terawatt hours of electricity consumed annually. The peak demand of around 33,000 megawatts. We've got close to 60,000 megawatts of installed capacity now. And you can see some of the values there, how quickly some of these capacities have been built. Last year, about 3,000 megawatts of renewables were built alone. Just in the first 2 months, there was another 6,000 megawatt of potential projects announced that were seeking approvals of various stages through the approvals process. So we have seen in this year a very fast transformation already. But has the growth become too strong? There's a lot of things that need to be taken care of to make sure that we're still providing reliable, secure electricity. And we don't want to be a blocker for achieving a step change scenario. So we are working along a range of initiatives to ensure that should we, or the politicians and population of Australia, want a step change scenario, we'll be there to help them. So where we're heading from now, this is a slide I borrowed from Bloomberg. A lot of things happening on kind of behind the meter, or the decentralization. Australia gone from being very much focused on big coal-fired power plants on a rapid rise of supply at household level. This is driven almost entirely by growth in rooftop PV systems, or small-scale PV system. And you can see some of the predictions we have here. And I might just remind you, the peak demand of the system is 33,000. And you can see the growth of PV there in some of our scenarios, almost getting to that level by 2040. We have expectations that there will be a rather significant deployment of battery storage as well, in particular in our step change scenario. And this battery storage, showing the megawatt hours there. The megawatt, I think, that's assumed by these installations, you can get by dividing that number by 2. All this embedded generation is reducing demand for grid-supplied electricity. And when we kind of plot that and then what it is projected to look like into the future, demand for grid-supplied electricity, we see the erosion of demand at midday when solar PV is generating. And you get what's called the duck curve. And the duck is getting fatter and fatter as we get more and more solar. And we need systems to make sure that we can still operate the system as the duck gain in weight. There's some color codes up there. And that's already happened. This is actually the Western Australian market, which is our smaller. We already midday getting into the grey area where we start to see market inefficiencies. Thermal plants are forced to operate at places where they are less economic. They might require more startups and shutdowns. And as we get kind of toward the blue area, we might more and more need to actually direct these plants to operate to ensure that we got enough synchronous generation to operate reliably. We will learn over time how to shift that to live it down, but at the moment, there's not that many years to actually learn that. We will be there in just a few years. And once we get to the black area there, we will actually have an oversupply and we will not have the ability to scale or to operate the system potentially, unless we get ways of reducing the generation from the rooftop PV when we need it. All this PV generation as well, both small scale and grid scale, has also caused, I guess, the emergence of, or the growth of occurrences of zero or sub-zero prices in the market. Just here, about a month ago, we, for the first time ever, had zero price across the entire national electricity market, as shown to the left. We saw periods of 6 days in a row where Queensland, which was traditionally dominated entirely by coal generation, reached the prices went to zero 6 days in a row. We had prices hitting -1,000, which is the price floor as well. And you can see up there the growth in these events, and that's even just based on half a year for 2019. So it seems to be becoming the new normal. And some of this, because it's showing kind of new things is happening. Once prices, I mean, not when it's getting to zero, but once it's getting to a -1,000, it's pretty stupid to actually generate electricity because it's costing you a lot. And this is an example of a solar unit that thought, well, I'm not going to generate now, I'm going to shut down, it's a blue line. And that's happened within 10 seconds, 110 megawatts gone. They regulate extremely quickly. Now, the kind of implied or assumed trajectory is the yellow line. And we need to make sure that we don't get 2,000 megawatt of solar doing that at the same time. Luckily, that hasn't happened yet, but currently there's no way to ensure that it doesn't happen. Fixing it for the large-scale plants is probably relatively easy. But what if those price signals at some point is passed on to consumers or automated home systems that decide, oh, the price of -1,000, I'll do something different, and they all react to the same signal. So we need to make sure that we don't get fluctuations and other things happening. So that's some of the issues we've seen. This is just a summary of what we're seeing. Negative prices, risk of market fluctuations. Negative prices also deteriorating the profitability of thermal plants that we have traditionally relied on for a lot of system services, which they've never been paid for as well, so there's no markets for them. How do we make sure that they're actually sufficiently maintained, that we can keep operating the system reliably? And how do we ensure that if they do close down at some point, that there's enough capacity being built of the right types in time for the closure of these rather massive plants? There's been a 3-year closure rule in place that they need to give at least 3 years notice for closing down. But some people say that may not be enough. Low system strength, how do we operate systems during particular low demand with very few synchronous generation in place? We've heard some people say there's a lot of studies happening there, but we are getting to a point where we need to actually turn that into practice very soon. these plants are built where the transmission historically hasn't been strong, but the wind and solar resource are good. We talked about low demand and some of the issues around there. Power electronics, condensers might work, but maybe we need to think about how we can use controllable loads to adjust, or potentially we might have to find a way to scale down the rooftop PV generation at times. Solutions. Traditionally, thinking would be to think big. Let's build more interconnectors. We need some of that. As I said, there's no silver bullet. We can ensure that there's enough other types of generation built. The government is working on a kind of an underwriting program that seek to ensure that we will get new dispatchable energy to replace some of the coal generation that will shut down. But there's more. I should also mention actually the pump storage arena. You're saying Renewable Energy Agency is promoting some, but the Snow 2.0 is a massive 2 gigawatt system that is promoted by the federal government in the Snowy Mountains, likely to be built by the 2024. But distributed energy resources, DSP, virtual power plants. A significant part of the solution could actually come from households, from buildings, and this is a good place to talk about buildings. Energy efficiency, taking off from what Hans was talking about. The task in the step change scenario is massive, and avoiding any unnecessary consumption really helps you to meet that goal. We've got rooftop PV. There's a number of challenges there, particularly around, we're kind of getting there, but we need to understand how much is there, how much will be there in the future. Technical characteristics, and potentially the rollout is controllability to scale down generation might be required. Battery storage, again, we expect we might get a lot. We don't know for sure. It's a difficult technology. There's no kind of a equivalent to see how the consumers have embraced them previously. So we are tracking now, monitoring that very carefully. And then we need to understand how will consumers actually operate them, or how will they be set up to operate. And there's very little understanding of that as well. They could be aggregated into virtual power plants, and I'll talk shortly about what we're doing in that space. On the DSP, how can we move consumption to midday to kind of a slim list? Put it on a diet, so it's not that fat anymore. That could be through smart operation of hot water load control. There's between 1,000 and 2,000 megawatts of load control, which is large hot water heaters at houses. Generally controlled for the evening peak, but could somehow use that smarter to move some of the recharging of the hot water to happen in that. And there's a whole lot of work happening around how can we make appliances controllable. And I'll have a slide on that as well. Fuel switching, but I think I'll hurry on to get into some of the more specific details. So visibility is key, as I said. For rooftop PV, we've been lucky because generally there's an incentive in place when you install a PV system. So people register to get the incentive. So we pretty good understanding of how much PV is installed. All that information about the inverter, panels, installation, the meter number, so we can kind of know where it is exactly, is being put into a DER register that will become go live from December this year. That will include all future installations, information, as I said, about inverters, panel types, and all other characteristics. We've got a DSP portal, so we've got DSP information reported into us. Technical challenges I mentioned. shutdown of the solar plant, which can be a problem, but it can also show us solar and wind can be part of the solution. So they can react extremely fast, and they potentially provide us with some fast frequency reserve. Markets and regulation, there's a number of things that need to catch up there as well. Western Australia, our smaller system, we're thinking of using a bit as a test bed. We're seeing a strong growth in solar there. It's a smaller market. So we're working on a number of things for this forum, in particular the big one there about distributing resources. Roadmap is of interest. Well, what are the policy settings, regulatory settings? Do proof of concept trials to see how the lease system works. And then learn how can we use it in the bigger market later on. We are working with the Energy Networks Australia around a program for, I guess, DR adaptation as well. There's a number of kind of key points there about the customer focus, what's the role of the aggregator, but a number of other things around. We need a market for network services and pricing signals for DER. And we put out a report recently that kind of discussed different market models, such as a distributed system operator or a hybrid solution that kind of merge different points of market models for that. Flexibility for residential appliances. So Australia's got the Australian standard 4755. It's a world-first standard for controllability of residential energy appliances. In 2013, it was tried to make it mandatory for a range of appliances, air conditioners, electric hot water heaters, pool pumps, and electric vehicle chargers. It was stalled, but the government would like to see, would this be taken up voluntarily as well? And in particular for air conditioners, that has been the case. There's a wide range of air conditioners available with this functionality. You can add in simply, it's got the connection port, and you can add a demand response enabling the wires or the thread, and then your air conditioner is now fully controllable. A utility in Queensland have had a program with incentives to put out or to install these devices along with air conditioners, and they have now 60,000 air conditioners that are being controlled at time of grid emergencies. Just earlier this year, there's another push to, can we make this mandatory, so all these appliances actually have the functionality that you simply need to plug in a communication device and they can be controlled by utility. So that's currently under consultation, and there's some discussion about what about other types, such as inverters for PV system and battery storage. Last example here, virtual power plants. So the aggregation of all these small units and make it look and feel like something larger, something we're used to, something that's highly controllable and help us operate our power system. We've got some funding from the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, RENA, and we're working on a demonstration program. It's got some aims around demonstrating the capability of the VPP, improve the operational visibility of what does it look and feel like. Regulatory arrangements, customer experience, and not least the cybersecurity aspects of operating these highly disaggregated systems with a lot of communication flows. So we're open for enrollment just a few months ago, but we get to kind of see any kind of to the next stage actually to sign up anyone for a real trial. So that was my very quick summary of what was happening in Australia, and I guess, as I said, a lot of things happening, get all the way down to the building side, but we need everything that we can think of to make this work.
Thank you. Time for one short question and with a short answer. Okay.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I was wondering about the duck curve that you mentioned. You were actually saying that in
basically the system stability of operating a system with very little inertia. And there's a lot of work happening around understanding or how can you maybe do it without this kind of inertia from big rotating, spinning machines. But it's really to deal with any small or bigger disturbances and maintain volts and frequency within kind of a safe envelope. And so when peak demand, you've got a lot of big rotating machines running to help meeting your peak demand, and typically that's not an issue. But when you get to minimum demand and a lot of injecting power from inverter-based technologies, unless you have sorted out how you can control them in a way that it looks like a traditional power system, you are at risk. And so we do need to listen to Enroll and others that are working